right, Guru Nation, you asked for it. I'll bring it. You want really quickly job descriptions of a study coordinator because I did a video recently where I talked about going beyond the job duties, beyond the job description. It's important to keep that in mind. You want to go beyond the job description. If you want to advance your career, that's just the way it is. And if you don't have research experience, you have to keep these things in the back of your mind. This is what a site is looking for. And you have to have the raw ingredients needed to get to this level. So I'm just going to pull from the book, Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. And if I go to chapter 4, Site Level Dynamics, there is a place in there towards the end called staff. And the coordinator is the most important staff. So on the physical copy, page 130 gets into site staff. We try to keep this simple. Depending on the study protocol, a PI could technically run a study alone, but as of the writing of this book, the authors have never heard of this actually happening. Uh, it does happen in academia, okay, but I'm talking about private industry. Somebody pulled me aside at my conference and told me, "Hey, you know that's actually is done at academia." Yes, I'm talking about industry sponsored trials for the most part because these are where these sites mainly are. There are academic medical centers, but those are not simply just sites. Those are institutions. So industry sponsored trials, I've never heard of a PI running all aspects of their study. Uh, Maybe a phase 4 survey study, but not a real study. So they delegate, and they delegate this to CRC. And what is a CRC in that case? The minimal amount of staff needed to run a study is the CRC and the PI. However, most sponsors would like to see a site have backups for CRCs in case one gets overworked or one goes on vacation. Now, they delegate the responsibilities of drawing blood, processing labs, performing vitals, ECGs, and many other tasks, including regulatory at some sites. I know things are getting more streamlined these days, but regulatory, it pays to be a generalist. I think the smaller sites offer more of a launching pad or a springboard, however you want to look at it, for your career as a researcher. So, the- a CRC may not be capable of drawing blood or doing ECGs. They'll either have to be trained on it or the PI will have to find somebody else to do it. Now, at my site, the CRCs do all of these things. They do the blood draws, they do the patient recruitment, they do the regulatory, they do the startup regulatory, they do the site selection visits, they do the site initiation visits, they train other staff. Sometimes they partake in the blinding or the unblinded portion of a protocol if those type of studies are being run at the time. They take on the role of monitor interface, so the ones that interface with the CRAs. They take on the roles of data entry. They take on the roles of answering queries. They take on the roles of keeping track of delegation of authorities. They take on the role of making sure the IRB renewals are up to date. They take the role of making sure the protocol amendments are up to date. The informed consent amendments are up to date. Essentially, it boils down to three things on my site and a lot more. This is why I did that video beyond the job duties: source, regulatory, and patient interaction. So source, the subset of source would be entering the data. So that will be the case report forms or the EDCs. Pretty soon that source and the data entry are gonna be seamlessly integrated. That dream of ours is finally starting to come together. As of the time of this video, it's not mainstream. It is a redundant task. But those three pillars, source, regulatory, and patient recruitment. Now, there's a fourth layer, which is like office admin type of work. So who's going to go buy the dry ice if you need to buy the dry ice. Um, if you want to include like the laboratory stuff as a fourth pillar, so drawing blood, spinning the labs, that could be a fourth pillar, although I throw that under source because source asks for those things anyways. So that presumes somebody is taking charge of it or at least coordinating the various stakeholders that are involved in doing those things, which is in the name. The job description is in the name of the CRC, which is coordinating amongst the assessments for a visit, amongst the deliverables needed from the sponsor, amongst the staff themselves, meaning interacting with who's on the delegation of duties log and who's supposed to do what task, and then at what visit, who's needed, who's not, what signatures are needed, what's not. That's all study coordinator. I know the PI is responsible for everything. We talk about it in this book, but the coordinator is the one, they're the backbone of the study. And so, to answer the question of what is the job responsibility of a coordinator, it's to run the study properly and to make sure the PI is doing their job, make sure the sub-I is doing their job, make sure the other staff are doing their job, and if they're not doing their job, guess whose job it is, and guess whose fault it is if those things don't get done and if those tasks are not properly coordinated. It's the study coordinator. So I wanted to keep this video very short. I did a much longer one on beyond the job description, but this is in a nutshell the job description. And yes, that includes informed consent. That's part of source. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Good luck out there.